Hello and welcome, everybody. I am delighted to be back in WHTT Women in Hotel and Travel Tech. And this is our second masterclass, and I can't wait to share with you one of my favorite topics and one of the topics that is affecting all of us for job search, for well-being, and for our communication impact, and that is your voice, your power. And the reason I'm calling it Your Voice, Your Power is because it is so connected with our ability to get through. And today, we're going to answer 4 questions. Why is the voice so connected to our confidence? And how come so many of us don't really like our voice? What can I do to unleash the power of my voice? And how does this relate to my job search? And let's dive straight in. I want to tell you a little bit about myself. I help professionals increase their impact and influence. And so usually before COVID times, I would be on stage as a keynote speaker, or I would do a training or a team building and do one-on-one trainings. And today I have the huge pleasure of helping people to create their communication tools and to connect online with what they need to get through. And I also want to say to you, while we're doing this live stream, multi-platformial on LinkedIn, Facebook, and on YouTube, if you have any questions along, I am watching your comments on my little phone right next to the screen. So you're welcome to stop me anytime, and we'll have time for questions in the end as well. My voice journey started many years ago, and I'm going to share a very personal photo where and when that was. And that is a very young version of me. And I'm standing in ein Hinterhof in Berlin, so a backyard in Berlin. And you can see behind me is a blonde guy, and that was Gunnar, a guitarist from Sweden. I had just moved to Berlin. I was excited to explore and learn new things. And lo and behold, we started a sing-songwriter duo. That led me to start taking lessons because I was so nervous. That led me to have a period of what I call my voiceaholic years, when I studied technique after technique. And many fast forwards, I turned into the communication trainer I am today. And when I gather my toolbox, I talk about the right kind of loud. And so finding the right kind of loud is finding that fine-tuned approach that makes you connect with your audience in that moment, the way that is just right for you and for that person or for those people. And of course, when I come in and I start helping people with the right kind of loud, there's many different tools, and the voice is such a big part of it. And having worked with the voice for so many years, of course, it's always a thrill for me when I find some research. And so in April, this very good research result came out from Chicago Boot Review. Some of you might know Chicago Business School is one of the big ones that do great MBAs and all of that. And they had this overview when they looked at when it comes to getting through to people and when it comes to coming across as intelligent, what is the best way? And they did a research when they asked people, so if you want to make a good impact, would you choose to write an email, or would you text, or would you give a person a call? And it turns out that most people are like, well, in our techie days, we like to just do a written something. But guess what? The way to really reveal your mind and to welcome people inside your head and to really make an impact is much better to use your voice and to get on a call. And if you want to, if you share your email address or connect with me on LinkedIn or get through to me somehow, I'm happy to share this research with you because it's really interesting. There are some short videos with that result. So how come that of all the tools that we use when we communicate, the voice is so sensitive? I notice working with the voice that a lot of us have a tendency to judge it and say it's not good or not good enough. And actually, the voice is a very, very closely knit part of who we are. The word person comes from 2 words in Latin. So per means through, and son means sound. So through our sound, we become who we are. And because the voice is created so far inside of us, and we cannot separate us from it, it's very, very sensitive to us. And also, of course, very powerful when we get control over it and we get to use it in a free way. And especially as women, we have some challenges. And here's one of my favorite quotes. Maybe some of you have seen it before. A woman with a voice is by definition a strong woman. But the search to find that voice can be remarkably difficult. This is Melinda Gates speaking. And there's many reasons why this is difficult. And I'm going to share with you why it's difficult and give you some tools of what you can do to find it. And one of the other qualities that is special about the voice and different from other kinds of communication tools is that the voice is extremely intimate. Right now, when I'm talking to you, the voice is created inside my stomach, then it travels up through my throat, and then it goes out in the air so that it becomes like these sound waves. I'm sure you've seen the pictures of the sound waves. These sound waves enter into your ear canals and they become vibrations inside of your bodies. So imagine that, from the inside of my body to the inside of your body right now. That's more intimate than skin to skin if somebody touches you. And so that is part of why the impact of the voice has such a strong effect. And as we know, when we grow up, when we're small, one of the first things we learn is like sometimes the grown-up says something and they mean something else. I'm not angry. Ooh, mom is really angry. Or, yeah, sure, let's do that. That sounds really exciting. Oops, that doesn't really sound exciting. So we learn very early on that when there's a conflict between the spoken word and what people are saying with their tone, the tone of voice, the way that we say it is always the one that wins. And so knowing that, it's really important that we get a good relationship with our voice so that it can express what we really feel. And then there are some other fun things about the voice as a communication tool, and that is that it is very elastic and it can do different things. So I have a slide about this. You can see different placements here. For those of us who speak different languages, we have different pitches, different ways, different sounds that come through, and that also impacts the personality that comes across. And I find it interesting because most times when I hear people speaking about the voice, I hear this, well, that's just the way it is, and that's my voice, and it can do this and it can do that. And what strikes me is very often that, you know, the voice is elastic. It can do all these different kinds of things. And so it's not a fixed entity. And I'll do a little demonstration just because it's fun. And so I have this unusual, not so practical, but very fun thing in my life that I speak the 3 Scandinavian languages because I'm born in Norway and I grew up in Norway and Sweden, and then I came to Denmark. So the 3 Nordic languages, they have 3 different placements in the throat and mouth area, and that impacts the pitch. So if you speak Danish, you actually go all the way down here into a very deep space of your throat, and so the pitch goes deeper. Så hvis jeg nu taler dansk for eksempel, I af jer, som forstår dansk, I forstår jeg godt, hvad jeg siger. Jeg ved godt, at jeg ikke siger noget underligt eller noget. Jeg bare sidder her og taler om stemmen, men det er sådan en ret anderledes kim, som I hører, ikke? So you could hear that was a deeper pitch. English is a little bit over the Danish, and then perfectly placed in the middle of the mouth, we have Swedish. And Swedish is very easy to intonate and sing in the right way with because it's placed perfectly in the middle of the mouth. Så om jag pratar svenska så får jag en helt annan klang och det låter mycket ljusare, det låter kanske lite mjukare, jag vet inte, men det är liksom en helt annan melodi när man pratar svenska därför att det är placerat just mitt i munnen. So you could hear that was a very different kim that you picked up. And then my first language, Norwegian, is placed very far up here. Spanish is just behind it, and then comes Norwegian. And by the way, when I say these placements, it's my own experience of the languages that has placed them there. So nobody's told me, but I think I'm pretty spot on. And so the Norwegian is just behind the teeth, and that makes the pitch very high. So for myself, if I'm traveling, which I'm not now, but if I hear strangers speak Norwegian and I haven't heard it for a while, I always think, ooh, that's a very, very high-pitched language. Så hvis man snakker norsk, så er det veldig, veldig mye lysere. Det er, altså, man gjør ikke noe spesielt. Det er altså mange som har sagt det, men man kan vel liksom ikke bli sinnet på norsk vel, for det er liksom så søtt og sånn. Det kan man jo selvfølgelig bli da. Men norsk er jo en helt annen ting. So that, my dear community of WHTT, was just an example of how different the voice can be in its elasticity and ways of experiencing. And so now comes the news about the voice that are a little bit harsh. And that is that 85% of us have asked to be silent. And I got this percentage from a voice coach, Tanya de Jong, who works in Australia. And I noticed this because when I ask people about their voice, I know that most of them will say that, I don't like my voice. I don't sound very good. It's squeaky. I don't like it. Sometimes even I hear people say, I don't have a voice. And I find that very harsh because it's actually with our own voice that we're saying, I don't have a voice. And the reason to this, dear community, is that very often we have what I call a vocal wound. So I said that the voice can do a lot of things. It's elastic and can make all kinds of different sounds and pitches and inequalities and all of this. When we grow up all around the world, each place on the planet, and I'm now going to show you my little globe, part of my thing that I always bring my globe. So each place on this beautiful globe of ours where we are placed has a different vocal tradition. So if you're born in Mongolia, you will do throat singing. If you're born in Tennessee, Kentucky, you will have Texas twang. If you're born in India and you're a woman, you're going to sing like the Bollywood stars, which is very high pitched. And so all these beautiful traditions are amazing in their diversity and in their different expressions. However, when we grow up and we're small, we're all natural born singers. I'm sure for those of you who have children, you know how much they love singing. And then when we get a little older and we start being exposed to classmates and teachers and more people, we have those years, the middle school years between 9 and 12. And that's kind of when we figure out how popular or not we are, how we engage in groups. And this is usually a painful time for most of us. And very many people, including myself, feel like we're outsiders. We don't belong to the group. It's kind of part of that socializing time. And if during that time we are exposed to a situation where somebody's asking us to use our voice and we get embarrassed and we get told off that it's not good enough, that's when you have a vocal wound. So maybe some of you have had that. Maybe it was you were singing in the church choir, in the school choir, and somebody said, oh, you just mime. It's okay. You don't need to sing that loud. Maybe it was a family gathering and somebody said, oh, Christina, she doesn't need to sing. Or maybe just said, oh, that doesn't sound good. And the people who told us that, they're kind of unaware because they don't mean anything bad. They're just saying, it doesn't sound like the voice ideal that we have around us. But of course, when we are young souls growing up with a very sensitive and deeply personal voice, we don't know. So for many of us, during those years, we have that moment of, I don't like my voice. My voice is not good. And I notice also as a voice coach, when I work with people's voices, that very often when I hear my clients say, well, that wasn't good. And if I then ask, so how did you want it to sound? And often the answer is, I don't know, but it wasn't like that. So we have that very strong judgment. If we have this experience of a vocal wound or something that holds us back, very often that creates what I call a vocal inhibition. And a vocal inhibition is simply that, we stop experimenting. And sometimes it increases a lot of not so ideal ways of using our voice. I can demonstrate a vocal inhibition right now. And that is like for sometimes a lot of people kind of speak like this, especially when I start projecting, it's going to sound very uncomfortable. What I'm doing right now is I'm speaking from my throat. And now I'm speaking from my stomach. And you can hear the difference. And also sometimes people have like a lot of air. So whatever they say, it's just like you want to kind of take away the air and make it strong. And, like I can really hear you now, but, there's a lot of air. And then, of course, we have the category of people that just speak and speak, and they just don't move their lips at all. They don't articulate. So whatever happens, their mouth is just like still, and it's really hard to hear, especially when we are in international contexts. And if we speak a second, third, or whatever fourth language, and we have accents, it's really important that we articulate and that this whole part of our mouth is elastic, because that makes it easier to understand. And then for us women, we have something in addition to this. So as part of my preparations around the voice, I went on YouTube and I looked at and Googled what is an ideal voice for women and for men. And then I could see that actually it's interesting. If you go to YouTube and you Google this, or you YouTube it, I guess it's the right expression, they say top actresses with sexy voices. And then they say top actor with voices women find sexy. So in those two expressions, you actually have that distinction of that we women, we are sex objects, you know, we can choose or maybe not choose, or we can be lucky, I would say, to be sexy or not. And if they don't find us sexy, we're done. Whereas men, they have that distinction of being perceived as sexy or not. But of course, because they're sexual subjects, they can choose who they want to have intimacy with. They're not just objects. They have that distinction. When it comes to what's different or the same around these voice ideals, what's fascinating is the ideals for male voices is very strict. It's supposed to be low and it's supposed to be like that. And if you have any variations, you're not gonna, then it's gonna sound like feminine or gay or weird. And so they have a much smaller vocal ideal box, you can say. And the two voices you have here on the screen, one is Morgan Freeman that you know, and the other one is a wonderful actor who was in the TV show Glee. And very different voices. And again, the Glee actor here, totally not masculine, not ideal, whatever. However, he's a big star and he's singing and on TV and all of that. So just more together. When it comes to ideal women or female voices, we have a big range. So of course, Marilyn Monroe had this very husky, very sort of speaking a little bit like a child and being very sensual way of speaking. And Jodie Foster has a much deeper, raspy kind of tone to her. And both of them are different kinds of ideals. So we have a little bit more, playground, so to speak. I'm now going to start talking about what happens with our brains when we sing, but I just want to check because I'm looking at my live stream and I cannot see any comments. And so Rita, can you please write a comment there? And if that doesn't work, I'm going to switch to WhatsApp because I want to make sure that maybe you have some questions around any of these things that you want to know. So to WHT moderator, please, you're helping me. I can only see that, you know, a welcome greeting, and I cannot see any comments. Okay, so that doesn't seem to work. So I'm going to change my phone now, and I'm going to change it to WhatsApp so that I can get questions on WhatsApp if you have any for me. Good. So this is a little bit about what happens when we sing. And most of us, as I said, don't like singing because we've had those those bad experiences around it. And so the cool thing about singing is that it really helps us stay sharp and it's super healthy. And we spend most of our time in the left brain hemisphere over here, right? When we're analyzing, doing admin, emails, don't talk to me about it. I am sitting so high up in these things. And then actually what happens when we sing is that we recharge the brain so that it becomes full of aliveness and it sends focus over to the left brain. It makes us happy. Endorphins are released. I can tell you if you go and you start singing along in the car or in the shower, or if you sing in a group of people, poof, it really lifts you up. And it also burns calories and all of that. So it's really healthy. And I sometimes also have the fantastic role to be a choir leader. So I want to show you a joyous moment that I've had. And this is me with the Dubai Women's Voices. So when I moved to Dubai, the first thing I did was to say to my friend, you can see her right behind me there. Her name is Cecilia. I said, I want to start a choir. And she said, great, I want to sing in your choir. So this is us in our first big concert. We had a fantastic time. Right now, of course, dear WHTT community, not so easy to get together and sing in choirs because we are isolated. So if you want to start experimenting and using your voice right now, I would say a good thing is to sing along to the artist that you like. And then I'm thinking, for those of you who haven't experienced vocal coaching, you might be, or singing training, you might think, so what is it actually that we practice when we practice with our voices? And so here is a little overview, because we can train many different things when it comes with the voice. We can train the pitch, and the pitch is speaking very low like this and speaking very high like that, like the Norwegian and the Danish demonstration that I did. So that can be elastic. And of course, volume. We can speak very, very strongly and project a lot, or we can speak very softly. And this is also a great tool to use. Both the pitch and the volume and all of this are things that we can use to make elastic, and that makes us better as speakers when we want to engage in our sessions and in our presentations. Speed is super important, you know, and every culture has different codes around how fast or how slow we should talk. So for example, I learned to speak Spanish in Mexico, and I was very happy and finally like, I can do this now. I can speak Spanish. And then I moved to Barcelona, and holy manoli, they were fast. And for someone who was new there, it felt like, oh my goodness, they're not even breathing. And of course, they are. They just have that code. However, as a speaker, when you are on, it's very good to apply what I call the sacred pause, and to have that grounding that allows you to breathe in between and allows the audience to zone in better. And it actually gives you high status. It increases your leadership in the moment. And then we have what I call warmth. And from a technical singing perspective, it's called resonance. The warmth of the resonance, that's part of just the quality itself of the sound. And so the secret to get a good resonance is to have an elastic mouth area and to have soft muscles around here. So for example, when I speak right now, you can see that I'm closing my mouth and there's no space inside. You can hear that sound is kind of flatter. And now when I speak and I have a lot of space, you can hear it. So when we practice with our singing voice and to get that resonance warm and engaging, a big part of it is just to work with that space and to make it elastic and soft. And then they have the articulation that I mentioned. Articulation is super important because it makes it clearer and easier for others to understand what we're saying. And then we have the expression itself. And we as human beings, because the voice is such a core part of our humanness and our personality and who we are, we have an innate, disgust that we do not like. We do not like it when we hear a flat automated voice. I mean, all of us, we know how it is when we hear these, yes, your call is very important to us, and the menu has changed, and now you can go to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ooh. I can feel it's almost like my stomach goes like, ugh, I don't like it. And we don't want voices to be flat and neutral. We want them to be human. And so the more expression and the more of our feelings that we can get into the voice, the more connection and the more impact we will have as speakers and as singers too, of course. So all these things are things that you can practice when you are working with the voice. And then I'm going to go with another example that I got from the same Chicago Business Review, Chicago Boot Review, and they did a research here around job search. And you can say here that if you want to get through to your employer, actually the best thing you can do is to get on a call. Because when they did this, when people had sent their resumes and people were looking at different resumes and people were evaluating different voices, when they had looked at the resumes, they were like, I don't know how interesting or intelligent this person is. But when they had spoken to the person, they were like, yes, this is an intelligent and resourceful candidate. So make note of that now, because we are thrown into this online networking and online job search mode. And so it's really important that we get our voice through, literally, like physically, we get our voice through, and that we talk to people as opposed to just sending those letters. And I know that our writing voice is important. and it can do a lot for us. But the voice itself can communicate much more. And so now I'm going to give you some tools that we can use. And I'm just going to check if I have the right questions here on my WhatsApp. Okay. No questions so far. Okay, good. So people often ask me, so Kim, you're a vocal coach. What is an effective voice? What is a good voice? And as I've told you before, around the globe, we have very different vocal ideals. And there's no one right way for the voice, but there's two qualities that are very important to have an effective voice. And one is that it is body connected, that it comes from the core. And when I do voice workshops and you have different voices doing different things, and I help somebody get into that body-centered voice, I call it the full body voice. Everybody can hear it. It has that, And to those of you who are thinking, oh, this sounds difficult or strange, or I'm sure I can't access it, I can tell you that I really haven't had a voice client that I can't help get into that voice, full body voice within 1 or max 2 sessions. It's not a big work. It's just finding how to open that door and accessing those tools. And then the second thing that is really important with the voice is that it is dynamic and elastic. We all know how boring it is with a voice that just goes on and on and on. And it's just the same, and there's no expressions, and it's just like, oh my God, I'm going to fall asleep. I really, really, really going to fall asleep. So the more elastic it is, and remember the slide I showed you before with the different things that we can train with the voice. We can be dynamic and elastic in our pitch. We can be elastic with our projection and speaking softly. One of the great tools, if you want to heighten your attention in your talk or in your presentation, and you really want to take your viewers or your listeners to that moment, is to prepare and go down in volume. So for example, if I tell you now that I'm going to tell you all these tools, and then at the end, the most important thing is going to come. And when I go down in volume, you're all leaning in because, oh, it's a confession. It's a secret. She's inviting me in. So that, and of course, sometimes it's good to project. So we can be dynamic, elastic with projection, and then with speed, we can speak slower, we can speak faster. We can have different qualities, different resonances, different sounds, and we can have different feelings that we can connect with. So the voice is really like a huge landscape of things that we can do. Really important. First tool that you can do, don't judge your voice. Be caring with it. Also, singing in the car. For those of you who can still be out there and be in the car, singing the shower. Join a choir. Not so easy right now, but you can have some sessions. And now I have a question. I'm very excited, and I'm going to see what it is. How can using your hands help articulate our voice and message effectively? When is it too much? Thank you so much, Tehal. This is a question from Houston, Texas. Fantastic. So very often when I do public speaking coaching, some of my participants will say, I don't know what to do with my hands. What do I do with my hands? And there's just a couple of basic things that are important about that. First of all, there's no rule. Usually our hands follow what we say in an organic way. Right now I get very self-conscious because you asked about it. But usually our hands follow the message organically. If you're like, I don't really know what to do, you can just hold them together. Like, I can stand up a little bit. Whoop. So hold them here. You can just hold them together. Some people like to hold them in the diamond pose, or just have them resting there. When we have our hands just resting like this, they're not disturbing, and people can hear our message really well. This is one rule, and that doesn't really apply right now because we're in our Zoominar or webinar or multi-platformial self mode. But if you're standing up and on a stage, preferably the hands should be above the hips and not lower. And right now, of course, nothing. I think you can judge a little bit yourself how you find my impact, because right now I took away my hands for a while and now I'm adding it. So for me, I'm one of the speakers who use my hands a lot. They come organically. I don't think about it. So I'm going to see the second part of the question. And when is it too much? Use an audience ally. An audience ally is somebody who loves you and who's got very good observation skills. And so next time you do a recording of yourself, show it to somebody who cares and say, do you think it's too much? How did you perceive it? there's a big continuum of ideals and what people's preferences are. So there's no real absolute right or wrong. While I take the next question, I'm just going to show you a quote that I really like, and it's something that is a quote from my book. The voice is a unique expression of our aliveness in the world. And I really mean that. It is unique and it is part of our aliveness. And it's so important that we connect with. I hope this can help us somehow. So, new question. Any suggestions of when speaking in public and you get nervous and your voice sound like that? Yes. For a lot of us, when we are preparing to do a live like this, for me, it's a live stream talk, or when we're standing in front of an audience, we get nervous, we get the butterflies. And the butterflies travel upwards, and for a lot of us, things happen and we don't know. So that ties into my previous masterclass. So for, who is this, Lucia? I'm going to say, I'm just going to see, so I'm sure I have the right one here. Let me see. Yes, this is from Lucia. So Lucia, I welcome you to go and look at the previous masterclass that we did with WHTT. And there I have a whole thing about how to prepare and some different things about public speaking, because the more prepared we are and the calmer, the better it's going to be for our voice. And then for the voice itself during a talk, what we can do is we can apply the sacred pauses that I just talked about earlier. And that is, so if you have a script, like today I have a script, I have the slides printed out and I have some notes for the different slides, have a marker in a different color or a little symbol and point out where you want those pauses, so that when your eyes are looking at your notes, neurologically, you already know, I'm going to pause there. And when we pause, we get to breathe, we get to ground ourselves, and that also calms the voice down. And then, of course, so you can be prepared, you can use the sacred pause, and you can do a warm-up with your voice before you start. And the warm-up is really efficient. And for those of you who might want to have an individual session, we can also do a special little warm-up recording for you, 3 to 5 minutes that you can use. So those are some tools for that. I hope that answered your question, Lucia. Do we have more questions? I think that's all for now, because if that is so, I'm going to continue and talk about what is next. So for those of you who feel like, wow, this with the voice is an important tool for me and I want to work with it, you can see here, here's a picture of the book that I wrote, The Right Kind of Loud, Finding Your Communication Voice. And the first chapter in that book is about the voice itself. It's called Sound Right, Unleashing the Power of Your Voice. So if you would just like to have a little appetizer, you can go to my website and you can download it. My website is coming on the next slide. And you can download that free chapter. And of course, you can also buy the book. And I'm going to show it to you. Here's the book. And inside the book, there is different chapters with different tools for how to get your right kind of loud and how to get through to your audience. So you have sound right, speak right, move right, listen right, connect right, etc. So, and tell it right, and writing tools and all of that. And then if some of you are feeling like, wow, I would like to have a session and focus on my voice or some other parts of your communication impact, I'm doing a special COVID time communication vitamins. So it's 30 minutes for £50. And before that, I'll ask you some questions so that I already know what I can help you with, so that we're sure to use that little vitamin booster in the best way. And then, as some of you already know, because you've been joining me, I host bi-weekly, so every 2 weeks, I host a Zoominar, I call them, when we come together and we explore different communication topics. And next time is next Friday, so May 29th. And you're welcome to join that. And then I have a special thing that is exciting right now, and that is also on Saturday. I'm doing a writing workshop. It's about finding your writing voice. And it's a 2-hour workshop. Next Saturday, so this Saturday. Okay, and so, from me to all of you, let's make some right kind of noise out there. For us as women in hotel travel tech, and for us as entrepreneurs, and for us as professionals, and for us as human beings and communicators, starting to have a caring relationship with our voice is so important. If there's only one thing I want you to take away from my session today, it's start nurturing a good relationship with your voice. I had a voice client a few years ago, and she told me when we started, I'm just checking here to see if I have more questions. Let me see. Yeah. She told me when she started that she grew up in a place where small children were not supposed to be heard, especially not small girls. And she just had that kind of like not really having given a space to her voice at all. So to her, my exercise voice was find a little ritual that you can do with your voice. Find a space, have a diary, and kind of just plan it. Make it a beautiful, special place, and just sit there, go inside, and ask yourself, kind of your voice, how are you? Where are you? What's up for you? And she was willing to do the little experiment, and she found a little space, and she went inside and connected with her voice. And when I had the next session, I was so curious. I said, so what happened? How did it go? And she said, well, I don't really know what happened during the exercise, but when I came home, I reached out to a person that I really needed to talk to, and I spoke my truth. And that's the magic of our voice, because our voices, we draw boundaries, we speak our truth, we have our asks, we tell when we want to have a race, we tell about when we are good. And so to all you professional women out there, I really hope that you will make some right kind of noise that makes you feel good. And I hope I will see you again. Here's all my handles that you can keep connecting with me. And also, of course, we are engaging with each other here, all thanks to Women in Hotel Travel Tech, WHTT. So please follow them on social media. And they have an amazing and rich program with seminars, with live streams like this, with panels, with all kinds of different things. And there's actually a couple of sessions that I'm going to check out myself. And I do hope that we stay connected. And may we all find our right kind of loud.